What is going on, Colts Nation? And welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Of course, your guys, Cody and Derek, back with another one, guys. Well, obviously, we are through the first wave of free agency for the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts have filled a good number of their needs already, Derek, in the first week or so of free agency. So, as we look to the draft now in the month of April, some things have certainly changed for the Indianapolis Colts. And some positions that we maybe had slated pretty early for the Colts, such as defensive back, maybe aren't quite as high on the priority list anymore for the Colts. But we wanted to bring you guys our mock draft 2.0, my mock draft 2.0. Derek's already has it. Derek has already put his out. So if you haven't already, go check that out. But yeah, guys, just wanted to give my mock draft 2.0 post free agency, post the Colts making their big moves here. So with that being said, let's get into this, guys. So 7 rounds, Indianapolis Colts. Let's do it. Okay, here we are at pick number 14. And interesting, Derek, Shamar Stewart and Mykel Williams are both here at the edge position. It's a position that is so interesting to me because you really don't have a future when it comes to defensive end beyond 2025 outside of Latu. Nobody's under contract, so it's definitely an interesting thing. And then you have Jalen Walker here. Malachi Starks is here. James Pierce is also here. So there are a lot of guys. You have, obviously, Jihad Campbell here. So there's a lot of options here for the Indianapolis Colts. And, I actually tried to do another mock draft, and I actually took an edge guy. I actually went and took, I think, Mykel Williams. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. But the interesting thing here, Derek, is James Pierce is sitting here. And I think, in my mind, he's the best guy outside of Abdul Carter when it comes to the edge position. But I also look at this and I say, look, you also have Jihad Campbell here. You have, Malachi Starks. Look, I know that safety, you got Cam Bynum, but Derek, another safety. I wouldn't hate that either. So I'm really torn, to be honest with you, when it comes to this pick, because there's a lot of options here for the Colts. What are your thoughts on just all these players around here? Because it always is so interesting. Like each mock draft you do, there's different players available, now than there was in the previous one. And then in yours, obviously, as well. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I definitely see all the edge work there. I've never been a fan of taking an edge at 14. Honestly, I felt like if you traded back a few picks, you could still get one that you would like. But then again, if Indy has one that they particularly like, then that's fine with me. I said before, if Tyler Warren is not there at 14, you take Jihad Campbell at linebacker there because, again, the versatility you get with someone as a Jihad Campbell who, the size, really good for the linebacker spot, great athlete, but also a guy that, has been shown he can get after the quarterback as well. So, I look at the versatility of him, and I agree with you on the Malachi Starks thing or even the Nick Ebenwari thing. The only thing is, you have your safeties right now. You don't really have, outside of Zaire Franklin right now, you don't really have a definitive answer at the linebacker position. And like you said, don't really have a definitive answer after this year at the edge position either. So, those positions would be more of an importance to me that early.
Okay, so for that reason, I'm going to go Jihad Campbell here. Again, Derek, I was very tempted to take an edge again. Like, I really was with all those guys available. I think in that situation, I'd probably trade back, to be honest with you, if I was sitting there with those options on the board. But obviously, this one, we're not. So, okay, we got our linebacker now, Derek. Now we move to the defense, potentially here with two guys at that defensive tackle position. Your guy, Tyleik Williams, out of the Ohio State University, he's definitely got some really impressive physical tools from what we're saying, 6'2", 334. And then you also have Kenneth Grant here, Derek, who's another, player. I know you took him in round 2 as well. So I think, Derek, I might, where the board is right now, I'm very tempted to take a defensive tackle in round 2 as well. I mean, you got a couple guys on the offensive line, which would definitely be interesting, but I don't know. Between Tyleik Williams and Kenneth Grant, I don't really think you can go wrong here with either guy. and they're both extremely large humans. They're over 330 pounds.
Yep.
That's crazy to me. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this. I mean, I know you obviously watch both these players during the college football season. So is there a guy that you think fits better in Indy's system? I'll be honest, I haven't looked at these guys a ton, but
I think Tyleik Williams is a slightly better defensive tackle at getting to the quarterback. They're both very good at run stopping because, obviously they're both ginormous human beings. But I think Kenneth Grant takes on double teams a little bit better than Tyleik Williams. But I do think Tyleik Williams, you could bring him on in replacement of Grover Stewart for those obvious pass down situations. And, he can do those types of things. So, I like both of those.
Okay, Tyleik Williams, I mean, just a little bit bigger overall. A little bit heavier. Not much difference, really. Whereas Kenneth Grant's about an inch taller. So I don't really think you can go wrong with either guy, but I'll go Tyleik Williams here because you went Kenneth Grant. So now we've both gone defensive tackle in round 2, which is definitely interesting there. So gone both defense with my first 2 picks here, Derek. Now here's an interesting one. You have Mason Taylor here, the tight end out of LSU. I think, Derek, I'm going to go get Mason Taylor here in round 3. You get your tight end.
If you can get Mason Taylor at pick 80, that would be phenomenal. And my guess is honestly, I see Mason Taylor getting picked earlier than that. But, again, if you have a good tight end in round 3 that you want, it'd probably be a good idea to do that.
And then I'll go Cameron Scatabo here in round 4. That's kind of a late one for him, but somehow
that is a little late.
If he falls here, I'm taking him. So Scatabo
looking for
there.
Looking for that running back.
Not my running back. He's the exact type of running back you need. Can go in there and compete. All right. So.
And again, we talked about it in mine where, you could afford to get a running back very late in this draft and still get a pretty good one. So even later than the 4th round, if you wanted to wait till the 5th round, hell, you might even be able to wait till the 6th round to do it. And there'd probably still be some good options there.
Yeah. So Tommy Hill out of Nebraska, he's got some size that you're looking at. Derek, I know that cornerback's not necessarily a need, but it almost seems like a Chris Ballard staple about every year to get some sort of DB, right? And but I also understand that you need some interior offensive line depth as well, or a swing tackle potentially.
Mm-hmm.
So you go here, Luke Condra. I don't know. I think he could be
it's decent size for it's decent size for the position.
Yeah. And he seems like he's a smart guy. It says elite pass production.
It says he's been only penalized twice in his entire collegiate career. And that's a smart football player right there.
So 0 sacks and 8 pressured allowed on 450 snaps nearly. So I'll go Luke Condra here out of Cincinnati. So figuring out
wouldn't be a Chris Ballard draft without some late offensive line depth.
No, and you need it. You absolutely need it. Okay. So now we move on, Derek, to round 6 for the Indianapolis Colts. There are a ton of linemen here. A lot of defensive linemen that I think could potentially project here. Offensive line as well here, Derek, for the Indianapolis Colts. Again, remember, these are my picks so far. So the Colts have already addressed interior offensive line up to this point.
And, I mean, you can always double dip at defensive tackle, dude. I know that we don't really have a lot of that interior defensive line help right now.
That's true. I guess I hadn't thought about that.
If you got Tyleik Williams, then him and Neville Gallimore will be the only ones that you'd have at the moment.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, there's not a ton of high upside from Gallimore. So, if you were going that route, then.
Yeah. And maybe you're looking, if you go and get, Tyleik Williams, he's probably more that 1 tech. So maybe you look for a backup 3 tech to compete in that room. I could see that being an option there for the Indianapolis Colts. What are your thoughts on Tonka Hemingway? I mean, I think we had drafted him at one point. He's got a little bit of size, good RAS score. What are your thoughts on him?
I've heard people mention his name quite a bit. definitely a player with some potential high upside.
All right, we'll go Tonka Hemingway here. Again, double dipping the Chris Ballard special on the lines. So there you go. All right, and then now we're at round 7 here, Derek, for the Colts. A few more guys. I know you took Max and Hook already. Dante Trader Jr. here. Oh my gosh, that's a terrible RAS score. That's crazy.
Hey, listen, all right. It is not always about the RAS scores. All right.
I know.
There's a lot of guys that don't have great RAS scores. It is just all about. I mean, remember, we had Antonio Brown didn't have a great RAS score coming out of Western Michigan when he did, or out of the MAC, and he ended up being as good as he was. So, it just all depends.
True. All right, just to round out what Chris Ballard does, because I feel like he does this every year or every other year, I'm going to take a DB. I'm going to take Jermari Harris out of Iowa here, Derek, to round it out here. So round 7 corner here. He's got good ball skills. He's around the ball a lot. It kind of gives me the Mike Abraham vibes, like, a guy that you just take who was pretty productive, and you take a chance on that guy. So there you go, guys. There is my full 7-round mock draft for the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, no trades have happened at this point. So I got Jihad Campbell, the linebacker out of Alabama, Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State to round out the defensive tackle depth room there. Mason Taylor, the tight end from LSU in round 3, pick 80. You got Cameron Scatterbo. It fell all the way to round 4, pick 117. Luke Kandra, a guy that will help shore up and potentially compete for that right guard position. You got Tonka Hemingway, a couple, of course, double dipping in there. A guy that's a little bit more of an athlete as opposed to Tyleik Williams. He's a little bit smaller and a little bit more athletic there. And then you round it out with a corner, Jermari Harris out of Iowa. So, Derek, what's your thoughts overall on this mock draft?
I like it, man. You're able to get 2 defensive studs right away, and you're still able to get a solid tight end and a really solid depth piece at running back. And then, you get that interior offensive line help, and then just double down on that defensive tackle depth. And then obviously rounding it out with some more defense. I think that's what the majority of people are thinking, that's what the Colts need to do is, take advantage of the defense in this draft. And sure seems like that's what we're going to do.
Man, it almost killed me to not take an edge, but you know what? Jihad Campbell's a great player, and I think he's personally a lot better than where he was ranked, Derek. I think he was way too low in this mock draft, simulator here. So I do think he's a good player that what the heck? Sorry. I do think he's a good player that will, if he is there, I think you take him for sure. But I know some people even said he may be going earlier than Indianapolis. So you never know. There's so much that will happen, Derek. Some players that will certainly rise, some players that will certainly fall. That's just kind of the nature of it. But yeah, guys, let me know your thoughts on my mock draft 2.0 here with my 7 guys. Really defensive focus in the first 2 rounds. Added a couple guys on the trenches and added a tight end as well. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. And as always, guys, go Colts.